Thank you for listening to We Have Ways of Making You Talk. Sign up to our Patreon to receive bonus content, live streams, and our weekly newsletter with money off books and museum visits as well, plus early access to all live show tickets. That's patreon.com/wehaveways.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
It's back to school season and Clorox is donating 2 million disinfecting wipes to classrooms across America. Because back to school means things can get a little bit messy. Just ask kindergarten teacher Miss Gibson.
Give me just one Clorox wipe and I'm ready for glitter glue, exploded lunchbox yogurt, peanut butter handprints, runny noses, picking noses, rubbing noses.
Touching noses.
Thank you, Edward. Ooh, nap mats and lockers and tissue boxes. And
Clorox
scissors.
disinfecting wipes. Teacher's #1 wipe. Clean feels good. Based on unit sales data.
They say to only bring what you can carry. So with the all-new 2025 Ford Expedition Tremor, bring a lot. Like 3 dirt bikes, a few tents, an entire crew ready to make memories. A panoramic 24-inch display, and the confidence to push your limits. The all-new 2025 Ford Expedition Tremor.
Always consult the owner's manual before off-road driving. Know your terrain and trail difficulty and use appropriate safety gear. Max payload varies based on accessories and vehicle configuration. See label on door jamb for carrying capacity of a specific vehicle. Always properly secure cargo.
Let's get undercover. The Frontier Force are attacking Mandalay Fort now. You can probably hear the noise of the shelling, mortaring, shooting. I'm fairly close to the walls myself, standing, looking half round a concrete wall. Our chaps are advancing steadily, bunching a little more than I'd like to see them. They're going very well. The tanks are advancing, firing very hard at the walls. You can see where our medium guns, firing direct, have made breaches in the walls of the fort. You can see the bullets flicking the ground just ahead of me. Tremendous lot of noise going on. A whole lot of smoke now near the wall itself, which is a very good thing for our infantry. I'm not quite sure which of the firing is the enemy firing. I can see some of our infantry going across now. They're running across near the tanks. They're in slouch hats, Australian hats, Gurkha hats. Very clear to see. And that was Major General Pete Rees there for the BBC. So that's fully embedded bit of journalism there by the Beeb.
I mean, amazing. Because actually, that I only put a part of that broadcast in. It goes on. I mean, it's quite a lengthy broadcast.
Yeah.
It's absolutely stunning because you just get such a vivid picture of what's going on. And there he is, the fighting general right at the front. Right.
Yes, welcome to We Have Ways to Make You Talk. Burma 45, Episode 5, Road to Rangoon. So, Jim, you were saying?
Well, my enthusiasm for Pete Rees knows no bounds, in sharp contrast to my disgust and contempt at Oliver Leese. But Pete Rees, I think, is becoming a great friend of the show, isn't he? I mean, he's a tremendous fellow.
And there are these major generals in Burma in particular. No one's ever heard of them.
But they're top drawer, aren't they?
They're really good. And they're all interesting characters as well. So, there's juice in the lemon as well as them doing a good job.
Yes.
And you think what their relationship must have been like with their men and their men trusting them and their men at least having confidence in them, which is after all what it's all about in the end, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also this thing that one of the things that happens in generalship in the Second World War, and I think is a thing in generalship actually throughout history, is people with personality who bend the rules a little in what they wear and they project a version of personality for the men to relate to and all that sort of thing. And there are the famous ones who we know that do that, and then there are the ones who do that and we don't know about at all. Why don't people know about Pete Rees, Jim?
I don't know.
Well, that's apart from the sort of epic struggle. That's what we want people to ponder.
Well, the interesting thing is the other person we're going to be talking about. Well, 2 other fighting generals who are really, really brilliant. General Punch Cowan, David Punch Cowan, of 17th Indian Infantry Division, who we're going to be looking at in a minute with the battle for Meiktila. And also Douglas Gracie, commander of the 20th Indian Infantry Division. These are they're top draw. I mean, they're really, really good. Yeah. And they just get it. And one of the things that makes them good is the distance is the remoteness, is the fact that they are forced to kind of think on their feet and do the impossible. And that actually makes you up your game. It's a bit like sort of, you know, when I'm playing cricket, I quite often do better when I'm coming up against better opposition, you know, because you're concentrating a bit more, you're focused a bit more.
So basically we're saying Burma's Bazball, is it?
Yeah, that was definitely Bazball. Oh my God!
Yeah, extraordinary.
I was sort of listening. The Battle of Mandalay. That's what I'm much more interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we related in the last episode, what's been going on is that Slim, of course, needs the Japanese to fall for the Mandalay thrust. He needs the Japanese to sort of stuck to him like glue, so he can hold them there. So his sickle cut to the south can work. Luckily, or as predicted, the Japanese have done as required. But that still means there has to be a battle for Mandalay. That has still got to happen. The Japanese, of course, have decided that the penny's finally dropped, but they're stuck now. They're caught in the jaws. They're wedged in. They're caught in the jaws of Slim's trap. And at the same time, have finally come to realise that there was no point holding on to Mandalay anyway, and that they've been 100% suckered.
No strategic value.
No strategic value. Suckered not just by their enemy, but by their own thinking.
Yeah, and by their own hubris and lack of intelligence and arrogance.
And what's interesting
delusion.
and delusion, but also by going against the way they've fought, right? So they're very successful in 1942 because they don't care about places. The point is you move on. You disrupt the enemy. You get inside the way he's thinking, and you get him to think the way you need him to, so that you can do what you want to him. It's what the Japanese are brilliant at in 1942. And here they are, hung up on a place with someone inside the way they think, someone inside the way they do war. And as a result, they're going to get tonked, aren't they? Is the simple truth.
Yeah. And you may remember that Rees's 19th Division are coming from the north, heading south, was driving southwards. And 2nd British Division, not Indian Division, 2nd British Division, are moving in from the east. But it is the 19th Division, Rees's division, that are on top of Mandalay Hill. And we ended last episode with the 4th Gurkhas taking the hill, but not clearing the southern slopes down into the town. And, you know, down below there is Fort Dufferin, which is this sort of huge, like a medieval castle, really, a moat, huge embankments, thick walls, all the rest of it. They haven't cleared the southern slopes of Mandalay Hill either, and dead Japanese are littering the summit. But there's plenty more in the cellars and basements of the buildings running up to the hill. And as John Masters writes in his brilliant "The Road Past Mandalay," he goes, "A gruesome campaign of extermination began among the temples of one of the most sacred places of the Buddhist faith." And the problem is that the chambers and cellars running up to the hill from the temples are made of concrete.
Right.
And Rees is entirely within his rights, from standards of the Second World War, to order a massive bombardment of Mandalay Hill. But he doesn't want to do that because he really does recognise their great importance from a religious and cultural perspective, and thinks, no, we don't need to destroy all these temples. We don't need to do all this. We can winkle them out.
Shades of Casino.
Well, quite. And, snipers are a big problem. John Masters is standing by or is crouching by a Sikh machine gun who gets drilled in the head just 5 yards from where he's standing. And the clearing of the hill and then the city that follows is incredibly methodical. Beehive charges are brought up, holes blown into the concrete, petrol poured in, then a very light fired down the hole.
Oh my God.
Then you hear sullen explosions from within and the sort of rocking of the ground. Any Japanese that sort of run out are then gunned down by machine guns. Piets are also used to blast doors, and grenades and flamethrowers. I mean, this is a really grim, awful way to do it.
Horrendous.
But by the 12th of March, Mandalay Hill is finally clear. But they've still got to get to the rest of Mandalay, and that's the problem. Yeah. And it's this Fort Dufferin that's the sticking point, really. And
this is an old fort, so picture, I suppose, is it red dust earth there? Like a mud walls, 30 thick foot walls, 70 foot.
No, it's stone walls. It's stone. They've got
stone, right? Right, okay. But I mean, 30 feet thick. There's nothing that'll get through those, actually.
And it absolutely dominates the city. It dominates the city. It's just this huge, sort of almost square block, sort of immediately to the south of Mandalay Hill, and it's almost on the banks of the Irrawaddy, but it's the best part of a kind of mile long Fort Dufferin.
Yeah,
it's
and
huge.
it's huge. If you pull up the stock image, it's vast and it's imposing, and it's extremely difficult to crack. So they're bombing it. They're actually they're shelling it. They're bringing in fighter bombers. They're bringing in B-24s as well to try and smash it. I mean, Jim, it says in your notes, even smaller Barnes-Wallis bouncing bombs used.
Yes, I know. Yes, incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely amazing. They can breach the wall, but not the earthen embankments around it. So here we go again. I mean, clearing the city on the hill, as you say, is a grim, awful business. Because the Japanese aren't going to surrender, this is what you're going to do. There's every probability that if things were the other way round, a white flag will come up at some point, surely.
Yep.
But that isn't going to happen. And they have that. The order is to fight to the last round, isn't it? That order has been given, hasn't it?
Yeah. Even though the commander of 15th Army is very against all that and actually thinks it's completely pointless. But, the orders have come from Kimura and Katamura. So, what do you do?
What are you going to do? Yeah. So they attack the walls on the 16th, 17th of March, exercise Duffy, as Rees calls it. Those attacks are repulsed.
Which is quite funny, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite good.
Exercise Duffy to get Dufferin.
Then the next 2 days, there are 4 more attempts made to get across the moat. So Slim rocks up and decides there's just no point with any further frontal attacks. It's too costly. So rope it off, isolate it.
Besiege it, effectively. Starve them out.
Yeah. But Rees has been planning an attack through the sewers underneath the castle. I mean, he's a fighting general, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
He wants to get it done, doesn't he? And persuade Slim it's a good idea. And all at the same time, there's street fighting carrying on with the corpses of civilians, women, children, dogs, and rubble and wreckage and corrugated iron off roofs absolutely everywhere.
Yep. Yeah, because I think Mandalay is a very beautiful city, and it's not destroyed, but it's ravaged,
smashed up.
Yeah, beaten up a bit. Yeah. But the amazing thing is, on the night of the planned sewer attack, 4 Anglo-Burmese civilians who have been prisoners of the Japanese they walk out of the gates with white flags and the Union Jack out of the North Gate, because Katamura has decided at long last to withdraw. And actually had secretly done so on the night of the 19th and 20th. So everyone's very relieved they don't have to go through the sewers, which is not going to be a pleasant job.
No.
That's it. Mandalay is captured.
And he's gone out through the sewers, hasn't he? That's the thing. They've got out through the sewers. The escape's been made the same way in that the British were planning to use.
Yeah.
Gosh.
2nd Division has been attacking from the southern end of Mandalay. With the city in their hands, Slim now orders a general victory parade in Mandalay, which actually gets him a little bit, both Mountbatten and particularly Lease are very sniffy about this, as he's just done this without consulting them. But he says, the capture of Mandalay be as much the result of operations in Meiktila and elsewhere as those of the city itself. Every one of my divisions had played its part. It was an army victory. I thought it would be good for everyone to have that fact demonstrated.
He's absolutely right, though, isn't he? It is an army victory. Right.
Yeah, and they're a long way from bloody Ceylon and Delhi and stuff. They don't need to.
Yeah.
And Barakpur, he doesn't need to consult with them. It's just a victory march through. Just keep everyone's pecker up. Why not?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, JR says, what part of the West Country was that? Well, you can do it again if you like, JR.
West Bromwich.
Yeah, that West.
That West, yeah. So that's Mandalay, taken, complete with parade. Meiktila, the other part of Slim's offensive. What's going on there, Jim?
The Battle of Mandalay and the Battle of Meiktila are kind of sort of raging at the same time, really. They cross over. And what's just amazing is this sort of, the total... The absolute woefulness of Japanese intelligence and interpretation of the intelligence that they do get is just absolutely remarkable and very much plays into Slim's and the Allies' hands. When the Japanese hear that the Allies have broken out of Nyangu on the eastern side of the Irrawaddy, they just think it's a raiding force, sort of another Chindits kind of thing. Mm. And then when 17th Indian Division, this is Punch Cowan's division, swiftly capture Meiktila, it catches them completely by surprise. I mean, they're just dumbfounded that this could have happened. I mean, we talked a little bit about this in the last episode, but, their response is quick, but it's in a very uncoordinated fashion. The other thing is that Kimura's rear area staff are weirdly blasé about it. And so Kimura is the Burma Army Area Commander-in-Chief, General Officer Commanding. And, he's got his rear area staff and he's got his operations staff. And the operations staff are in a complete state about it, but the rear area staff are kind of just, yeah, whatever, and the rear area staff are kind of boasting that the enemy at Meiktila would be destroyed in a week by the arrival of 49th Division, which has been hurriedly ordered there. But 168th Regiment was had already managed to get there by the time the British were, Punch Cowan's division were attacking the town, and most of them have been destroyed in the process. That's a regiment down. That's 3 battalions kind of more or less gone before they've even started. And, the 49th Division commander, so the 168th Regiment get there kind of ahead of the rest of the division of 49th Division. And the commander, Lieutenant General Heitarō Takahara, he reaches the front on the 4th of March and discovers that not only that Meiktila has already been occupied and most of his garrison killed or wounded, but one of his regimental commanders is also dead. And also, the British seem to be staying where they are in Meiktila, not advancing beyond it. So the following day, he hears from Major Kanda, one of the survivors of the 168th Regiment, who tells him he's only got 400 men left. That's not a great start. In other words, they're already kind of fighting uphill, effectively.
Yeah.
And so other divisions are sending contributions. So, 33 Division is sending a contribution, but they're up at Mandalay having a nightmare. I mean, they've been trying to fight 20th Division and 2nd Division and so on.
And they were all under strength in the first place.
Yeah, your division is kind of 8,000 strong rather than 15 or 16.
15.
So 50%.
Yeah.
So 33 Division sends 1 regiment. 18th Division has also been hurriedly dispatched, but minus 1 regiment, which is still in the north of Burma, facing off against the British 36th Division, and more of that in the next final episode. And also a regiment from 2nd Division, which has also been posted to Indochina.
Right.
It's all a bit fractured. And what that means is you've got lots of different units who are not used to fighting together. And they're not used to the kind of command and all the rest of it. 15th Army Command, they don't have much clue about what's going on. The arriving 49th and 18th Divisions haven't got much clue what's going on. They don't know what forces are holding Meiktila, but the intelligence they've got is it's either the 5th or the 7th Indian Division. I suppose it doesn't really matter which division it is, but they're completely wrong. I mean, it's the 17th Division, which they're not even aware of. So Major General Naka of the 18th Division is told to simply block the enemy's exit to the west. And once they've done that, then destroy the enemy when they try and break out of Meiktila.
Now, Jim, this is very interesting, isn't it? Because the Japanese have been fighting since 1937 in China, haven't they, basically? Or even arguably 1931. And have been done very well there, haven't they? Actually been winning right at this time with Ichigo, right? Why are they so bad at forming Kampfgruppers then? Because this is what's required here, isn't it? If this were the Germans, there would be a thing about how they rapidly assemble a Kampfgruppe. And luckily everyone, even if they don't get along, even if you've got an SS guy who hates the Wehrmacht guy and the Luftwaffe colonel and all that. Although actually, when you start to prize that apart, when you start to look into that in Northwest Europe, it's not necessarily the case. Very often, say the Luftwaffe colonel doesn't know what he's doing because his job is spare parts or something, normally. The Japanese army is hugely experienced, particularly at the command level. What's going on? Why are they?
Well, I think it's the attrition of war. I think it's the same thing. The sort of Germans are really good in 1940, but they're not much caught by 1944. It's the same sort of thing. I think they've just, they've been treated so badly that the sort of junior level command probably isn't up to much. And that's what you need. You need good junior commanders, but they're being hurried through officers' school, aren't they? Because everything's short and they're running out and they're taking so many casualties and all the rest of it. And the other big problem is, they haven't got much mechanization. Most of this is being done on foot. They've got a handful of tanks, but the tanks they have got are kind of, thin and small and pretty puny. The artillery they've got is a bit mixed, but they haven't got much fire support for the infantry. That's the problem. They've got a few machine guns and a few mortars and stuff, but their main way of kind of overwhelming the enemy is still suicide charges. But the problem with suicide charges, they're incredibly costly and very, very expensive. And what the Allied forces now, what Punch Cowan has worked out is that he needs to operate here in this landscape in fully formed battle groups, and the kind of battle groups that you and I would recognize from the German army or from the Normandy campaign or whatever. In other words, infantry moving down the road, clinging to Sherman tanks, when they come into action, getting off, coordinating with motorized artillery and anti-tank guns and mortars. And so these are proper big battle groups that are going off and doing, and operating. And their superior firepower and, frankly, training is just besting the Japanese sort of pretty much every single time at this point.
What's actually the case is the Japanese could form a Kampfgruppe all they wanted, but with what they've got versus what the Allies have, but that essentially...
There's a mismatch.
Well, yes, I was just going to say, Slim has created a set of circumstances where it's not a fair fight if you're the Japanese, from the Japanese perspective, because who wants a fair fight? If you very often there is that kind of whiff of implication that the Allies are kind of not doing it fairly by using overwhelming firepower, combined operations, armor, aircraft. Well, so what?
Yeah. Well, we'll see how this. I mean, when we go through the siege of Meiktila, it'll become absolutely clear what on earth is going on here. So Cowan's policy is one of aggressive defense. He doesn't want to fight in the town. He's got the town. He holds the town. That's now his admin box. That's his administrative area. What he wants now is he wants to form these battle groups and send them down the roads leading out of Meiktila. You've still got those two lakes. That's now in their favour because they're protecting them in effect. But all around the southern lake, for example, he has single infantry companies positioned with mortars and machine guns in a static defence. So there's 3 from the 99th Brigade, and we'll remember that the 99th Brigade were the 3rd Brigade of 17th Division, which were flown in to Meiktila, 1 each from the 48th and the 63rd Brigades. And the 48th is the one that George MacDonald Fraser is in with the borders. Yeah. And 1 company from divisional headquarters, plus 2 battalions holding the airfield and the dumps. So the airfield is to the main airfield at Meiktila is to the kind of immediate east of the town. And then there's these 5 columns of infantry, armour and artillery, which start sweeping out of the town on the 6th of March because they've secured the town. And now they want to kind of push out and engage as many Japanese as they can and destroy them. And what they really want to do is destroy them piecemeal as they're arriving. It's the same old thing as Normandy. When the Panzer divisions are coming to converging towards Caen, they're being flung straight into the action before they've had time to dig in, reconnaissance, coordinate themselves, get themselves into organisation and all the rest of it. This is exactly what Punch Cowan is doing now against the Japanese. Yeah. They're heading out kind of 5 to 10 miles on that first day. 1 column from 48th Division, 48th Brigade rather, meets fairly stiff opposition at Yindor, but that's 10 miles south of Meiktila. So what they're doing is they're going forward, waiting till they meet the Japanese, firing at them, shooting them all up, then pulling back again.
Going out looking for a punch up, basically.
Yeah, but not getting stuck.
Yeah, and so there's a load of engagements, aren't there?
Yeah, it's like constant. Every single day there's these sweeps going out, meeting the Japanese as they're arriving, basically.
And overwhelming them and destroying them.
Yeah, so the Japanese are coming from sort of every which way they can. And then suddenly trundling towards them is a whole load of Sherman tanks and artillery and pretty well-trained and disciplined men with Bren guns and mortars and grenades. And they're getting absolutely hammered just as they're discombobulated. They don't really know, they're not familiar with this ground. And then the British are kind of sort of pulling back again.
We need to take a quick break now as the Japanese feed themselves into Slim's cunning trap.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. When you visit the doctor, you probably hand over your insurance, your ID, and contact details. It's just one of the many places that has your personal info. And if any of them accidentally expose it, you could be at risk for identity theft. LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second. If you become a victim, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year at lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
I'm David Olusoga.
And I'm Sarah Churchwell. Together, we're the hosts of Journey Through Time, where we explore the darkest depths of history through the eyes of the people who lived through it.
Today, we're going to tell you about our new series on the Great Fire of London, one of the great pivotal events of the 17th century, one of the most important events in all of English and British history.
It began at a bakery on Pudding Lane and quickly turned into a catastrophe. It consumed 13,000 houses, it decimated London, and caused £10 billion worth of damage in today's money. It even burned down the iconic St. Paul's Cathedral.
The city was already devastated by the Great Plague, but rumors of foreign invasion led mobs to attack innocent foreigners on the streets. In this episode, we'll explore the chilling consequences of rumors, of fake news, of xenophobia, problems that clearly are not unique to today.
From desperate attempts to save their homes and belongings to the struggle to assign blame, which turned deadly. This is the story of the fire as it was lived through by the people on the ground and the lasting impacts it left on the city.
We've got a short clip at the end of this episode.
Welcome back to Weird Ways of Making You Talk. The battle for Meiktila, the battle for Mandalay continues. God. So, I mean, an example is on the 10th of March. 17th Division sent out a force of armoured cars, infantry and tanks from 5th Probin's Horse. Fantastic. Probin's Horse will have been amalgamated and disappeared now, but 5th Probin's Horse, whoever still bears their standard, this is a good action. They're sent out to help a divisional Echelon B column to get back into Meiktila, and they run into units from the 214th and 56th Regiments who are digging in at a milestone of 5.5 miles north of the town. And basically, I mean, there is probably nothing worse than being caught while you're digging in because you haven't dug in quite yet. Yep. And the Japanese have got no answer. And
there's these 2 days big tanks, which are much bigger than theirs.
Yeah.
Coaxial machine guns, just hammering them. 75 millimeter guns pounding them. No, 2 days of fighting, both regiments get absolutely hammered.
And then into the second half of the march, the weight of the fighting shifts to the main. There's an airfield, the main airfield to the east of the town.
Well, I think the point is what's happening now is the Japanese forces, which have been hurriedly sent to reinforce Meiktila, by the kind of 14th of March, they're there. To all intents and purposes, 90% of them have got to the Meiktila area, but they're not in Meiktila. I mean, it's really important to understand that they're coming down the approach roads. But obviously, a really huge objective is not only the town but also the airfield. So that's a key objective for the Japanese. Plus the dumps which are there between the airfield and the town. So that's where they're heading. And overnight on the 14th, 15th of March, one Japanese company from the 55th Regiment and one company from the Jap Mori Special Force, they're probing the airfield defences from the south and the northeast. But again, the fact there's one company, 2 companies doing this from different forces very much underlines the sort of ad hoc nature of which these units are arriving. Right, you're here, you can go in, off you go.
Yeah. Given that they're overpowered, overmatched, it's a double recipe for disaster, isn't it? For the Japanese.
But by the 15th of March, Japanese artillery's arrived, so that now starts to shell the airfield fairly heavily. But the same day, the 9th Indian Infantry Brigade, part of the 5th Indian Division, begins flying into Meiktila as reinforcements. And, we all know how short of supplies the Japanese are. So, heavy shelling by the Japanese is not the same as sort of heavy shelling by the Allies, for example. No. It's just not on the same league. Remember when we were in the Arakan, they fired 800 shells in one day, and that was like the heaviest barrage ever. But obviously, it's just paltry compared to the kind of shelling you get in Normandy or Italy or something. So they're still able to fly in despite the airfield being under attack. And that same night, and we've now got 2 battalions from the 55th Regiment moving up to take positions. So they're starting to arrive. Do you see what I mean? You can see how this is all this is building up. But again, they've just arrived a bit too late because on that day, the 15th of March, this whole infantry brigade has arrived by air.
But Cowan, by keeping the Japanese on the back foot the previous days, though, has meant that they aren't organised and can't be organised.
No.
Even though they are now able to sort of invest bits of Meiktila, they just can't. They can't do it with anything like the effectiveness.
You never get a sense of this concentration of force. They don't sort of go, right, what we're going to do is we're going to sort of mass in the northwest, and we're going to kind of, or northeast or whatever, and we're all going to kind of push in one great coordinated shove. It's so piecemeal, the Japanese attacks, even though they're sort of, at this stage of the battle, they're concentrating around the airfield. We're still talking 2 battalions. So, what's that, 1,000 men?
Yeah,
most, maybe a bit less.
So, how does Cowan respond to the airfield being besieged? What does he do?
Well, he's not having any of it. So 16th of March, he sends troops from the 99th Brigade with tanks from our old friends in Probin's Horse. And they sweep towards the airfield area and push the Japanese back up the Mandalay Road. They just got no answer to the Sherman tanks because their tiny bullets just ping off the metal. Yeah. What they do start to do is they do start to kind of sort of do these suicide attacks where they'll just sort of run at the tank and kind of, with explosives and all the rest of it. And, there's no question they take a toll, but it's just not enough. So then on the 17th, 18th of March, 2 battalions from the 63rd Brigade, which is part of Punch Cowan's division, and 2 squadrons of tanks from yet again Probin's Horse. They really are getting around in this battle. They then carry up a sweep up the Malang road to Sewa. Now, Malang is the road that's pressing out of the north west of the town. So the airfield is on the east, so they've done their sweep the previous day, gone back into the centre of the town, then moved back up the Malang Road the following day. So they're literally kind of everywhere. But what they're doing is they're sort of, okay, you're needed there, go and push the Japanese back. Once you've done that, and then we can kind of go back up another road, and we'll just, every time they reappear, we'll just carry on pushing them back again. But they can't be everywhere all at the same time. So this is where the lack of coordination by the Japanese is really starting to kind of work against them, because there's never a sense that Punch Cowan's division are being attacked in the round all the time, that they're able to kind of maneuver troops around to deal with threats as they come in, rather than in the piecemeal fashion in which they're happening. Yeah, they're not sticky enough, are they? So no, and on this sort of battle group sweep up the Malang Road, they then smash a number of Japanese artillery guns, which means those guns can't operate in the battle anymore. Yeah. Then the 18th of March, 99th Brigade and a squadron of tanks from the Royal Deccan Horse, they sweep the villages of Kandangbalk and Shorbugan. One of the things is, actually, when you start to look into this, is very often the village names have changed, or there's a Burmese iteration of the name. And if you put that Burmese iteration into Google Maps, the village will suddenly appear on the map. Anyway, they run into heavy opposition, and there are well-placed anti-tank guns, and they lose 4 Shermans. It's the 18th of March, isn't it? So they've had 3 or 4 days in which to kind of get themselves sorted, the Japanese. Organised, put the guns in the right place, they've dug in, all that stuff. But again, it's so piecemeal, that's the point. Yeah. And you can afford to lose 4 Shermans. Yeah. That's not one of those sort of Normandy disasters where entire troops are being knocked off from a mile away by a panther or anything like that, is it? It's 4 Shermans is obviously a troop, and probably, or best part of a troop, and they were probably ambushed by these anti-tank guns and probably knocked out in pretty quick order. But you know what I mean, Jim? I know exactly what you mean, and the point is, again, is there are these little flashes where the Japanese are effective, but that's when they've had a chance to kind of dig in, get themselves organised, work out a plan, find the best positions for an ambush, all that kind of stuff. But there's not enough of that going on. That's the point. Yeah. And then, we do have a Japanese armoured attack, though, on the 20th of March, the 55th Regiment. And, well, come on, let's give them credit. 55th Regiment and 119th Regiment, with a handful of tanks from the 14th Tank Regiment, attack the airfield and 99th Brigade's admin box. But they're beaten back because, Japanese armour... Yeah, at this stage of the war. At any stage of the war, they don't really, they haven't got the what they need to deal with this. It's like putting a Matilda 1 against a Firefly or something. It's just not going to work. It's not fair. The 21st to the 22nd of March, 48th Brigade, and this is George MacDonald Fraser again. And I cannot stress, we had the extract at the start of the last episode from Quartered Safe out here. Cannot stress how fantastic that book is. I've reread it. It's just tremendous stuff. It's amazing. So so it's the Border Regiment and the Royal Deccan Horse. They counterattack against a build-up. Again, this is the thing where they go out and go and get them. It's 5 miles south of the town at a place called Shwe Padagain. Yes, because the remnants of 168th Regiment, they were the ones that were early to Meiktila and got basically routed, and there were only 400 left by the 6th of March. So they've been pulled out of the town, obviously, because they've been kicked out by the Allies. And so they are now kind of, the 400 survivors are now kind of around this little village called Shwepadine. And they're then hit again. This is 5 miles to the south of the town. And they're hammered again, and then they pull back again, so the Allies pull back again. So It's the same old, really. And the same day, the 99th Brigade also attacks the build-up of 49th Division troops south of the airfield near Nyongbinta.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because what this also suggests is that the Allies have very much got their eyes on what the Japanese are up to, and are very, the patrolling is obviously incredibly effective, because you only find out about these build-ups by patrol.
They're patrolling every night.
Ruthless patrolling, and you maybe grab someone, bring him back, say what's going on, and none of this is guesswork, right? This is very, very deliberate, and like you say, aggressive defence.
Yeah.
And then on the 23rd to the 24th, 49th Division launches a proper attack, or as major attack as they can on Meiktila, just 2 battalions. But again, there's a defensive box here. 48th Brigade are ready for this.
Yeah.
And there's the 49th Division. And obviously, one of the things you've got to be careful of here is, yes, it's a division fighting a brigade, but 49th Division by this point are probably a brigade strength, right?
Yeah.
They're being smashed up.
Something like that.
They're beaten up on 48th Brigade's defensive box. And that, again, that's in quarter safe out here. It's absolutely
it's brilliant. And as are descriptions of these patrols and night patrols and stuff. I mean, it's all absolute. This is the bulk of the book is this bit.
Yeah, it's truly incredible.
Yep. And then 25th, 26th of March, 48th Brigade again, with tanks from Probion's Horse and the Royal Deccan Horse, clear an area northeast of the airfield. So they're destroying guns and pockets of resistance. So that basically means airfield's safe now. It's all over. The 27th of March, 63rd Brigade with tanks from Probion's Horse move up the Malang Road again, north out of the town. They get quite a long way. So they're really, the Japanese are no longer on the attack at this stage. They are now being pushed back. And the 27th, 29th, 28th of March, the 99th Brigade continues to push north of the sluice running into the North Lake, but does run into some heavy machine gun fire there. And the following day, 28th, 29th of March, 63rd Brigade advances east from the north bank of the North Lake on the Pindale Road, makes very good progress, and on the 29th, 63rd and 99th Brigade link up well north of the town. So, this is effectively the end of the battle. The truth is that after the assaults on the airfield and the town had failed, General Masaki Honda, who is now the 33rd Army commander, he realised that his 2 shattered divisions have completely shot their bolt. 18th Division has lost about a third, 49th Division nearly 2/3. To the north, 15th Army is now in full retreat, of course, after the end of the Mandalay battle. And in fact, 20th Division, who'd had the toughest time of it, now are on this sort of killing spree, because they push south from the Irrawaddy River as it's running kind of sort of east to west, to the west of Mandalay. They capture 18th Division's administrative headquarters back on the 21st of March. Well, that doesn't really help the effort of 18th Division at Meiktila, does it?
No.
But then they move east to take Keaske, which is a Burma Army area supply center, killing lavishly as they go. And Louis Allen, who's the sort of the great historian of this campaign, he likens it to General Sheridan in the Shenandoah Valley in 1864, when Sheridan goes on his march and just sort of hammers absolutely everything. And more than 3,000 Japanese soldiers are additionally killed in these sweeps south. So by the beginning of April, 33rd Army is just 8,000 men strong.
God, well, that makes the point.
And the 2nd and 20th Divisions then link up soon after. While the 19th Division, this is General Reese, they do take Maimyo, which they'd, been, you remember in the last episode, we were talking about Reese and Masters discussing whether they should detach a brigade to go and sort out that town, which is about 30 miles to the east. And in that time, in 10 weeks of fighting, 19th Division has killed 6,000 enemy troops, which is a lot in this theatre.
Yeah. Then 7th Division has also been pushing out of Tanktha and clearing the road to Meiktila. They push 30 miles northeast to take the town of Myingyan, which is another nodal point they need, where the Irrawaddy and the Chindwin meet. And there's also the railway here on the Mandalay Meiktila Rangoon line, which is then captured on the 18th of March by 5th Indian Division. And then follows 4 more days of Banzai charges, but they see them off, inevitably, with lots of dead Japanese as a result. And then, of course, the engineering effort has to immediately follow, because, we are so far from India now. It's the other thing. So you need to get yourself straight. So it's wharves, bridges, and bit Hess roads are put together. and another supply line to Meiktila. And finally, on the 28th of March, General Kimura orders 33rd Army to abandon its offensive against Meiktila. And on the 30th, Cowan's patrols find that the Japanese have cleared out the previous night. They're gone. It's an extraordinary victory, isn't it?
It really is. And, let's just look at the casualties. So 4th Corps lost 50 tanks and 300 casualties. I mean, it's a lot, but it's nothing, is it? For a battle of this scale. Whereas, this is just around, just 4th Corps. But in the whole operation, to have 300 casualties only from an entire corps is pretty good going. But the Japanese at Meiktila have lost 2,500, dead and 50 artillery pieces. But also, their supplies are running low. They've got nothing. And they've just been completely duped by 4th Corps. So much so that, I mentioned it earlier on that the Japanese 2nd Division have been transferred to Indochina just on the, now Vietnam, just on the eve of the Meiktila battle. I mean, it's just extraordinary.
I mean, it's a stunning victory, but like any campaign in Burma, they're up against a deadline, aren't they? Because the monsoon's coming.
Yeah.
So will they get to Rangoon before the monsoon?
That's the key question.
Join us in the next episode. The race for Rangoon is on. Will they get to Rangoon before the monsoon? Sounds good, doesn't it? We'll see you soon. Cheerio.
Cheerio.
It's David Olusoga from Journey Through Time. Here's that clip that we mentioned earlier. If you look at all of the accounts of the fire at this point, as we get to the end of Sunday the 2nd, the first day, this fire is not behaving in any way the way fires traditionally did in London. And there are some people who've argued that it was becoming a firestorm, that the heat and the wind and the movement of air caused by the fire was feeding it, was becoming self-sustaining, as it were. John Eveling, who's a great writer and a diarist of this moment, he talks about the sound of the fire. He said it was like thousands of chariots driving over cobblestones. There are descriptions in Pepys and elsewhere of this great arc of fire in the sky. I mean, imagine that everything around you is coloured by the flames, yellows and oranges, and above you is this thick black smoke. This is a city you know. These are streets you walk. This is a place that's deeply familiar to you, and it looks completely otherworldly. It looks like a sort of landscape you've never seen before. People describe the fire almost as if it's supernatural.
If you want to hear the full episode, listen to Journey Through Time wherever you get your podcasts.